The Lizard is the furthest point south in the British Isles, and that's only 2.5 miles from here. And there's spectacular coastal views there, really spectacular. I got good memories of before the war because everything was so beautiful and peaceful and calm. Yeah, I well remember skylarks and the yellow hammers. Don't hear them now. Thrushes, blackbirds, lots of crows. And I can remember Como when it's all agriculture. Everything was all still horse-drawn, you know, there was no machinery, very little. Very, very few cars, hardly any. The war started in September 1939, and that was suddenly a big change. All this lovely, peaceful landscape that I've been told about, it suddenly changed, and we had thousands and thousands of troops all over the place. They built these huts, and they were just above us here. They laid down a concrete base, and on this base, these semicircle huts. And that's where the troops slept in there. And the first one I can remember is the RAF regiment up here. Then the old Serpentine pit, that's taken over, commandeered to Horace Stone for the aerodrome. It's all Serpentine around here. I suppose it must have been Queen Victoria came down to have a look. She bought some things, some ornaments. So that made it very popular. And there's men there working. And my father, he can remember that being worked for Serpentine. It came out on this little railway on a wagon, I suppose, probably pulled by men or pushed by men. And it came out to here, to the road, where it was loaded onto a wagon, which was drawn by a pair of horses. And that was taken down to Poltesco Serpentine factory, where they made the ornaments. And my grandfather worked there a little bit. There was nothing here. Britannic drum wasn't even built then, nothing. It was still just the bare downs. They had to build Britannic airfield as quick as possible, and that's what the stone was used for then. And it had beautiful Serpentine in it, you know, it's a shame, but it had to go for the war effort, you see. As a boy, I was always out with the quarrymen. I got to know them quite well. I remember some of the names now. Percy Eustace, he was a cameraman. He was on the main drilling machine. After they drilled the holes into the rock to blast it out, they said to me, "You run with mother, boy, because we're going to blast now." So I had to come in with mum. And after a bit, bang, off go the dynamite in the holes and blew all these big rocks out. And when it come out, there's this great big pile of rock all blasted out. It was broken up by hand, men with hammers, big sledgehammers, and they would break it into smaller pieces. And then it was loaded into lorries and taken up to build the runways for the aircraft. Then they had problems with it sinking out of sight. There was a retired gent by the name of Mr. Petrie, and he'd watched the natives build the Khyber Pass. They used brushwood. So here, they went out and cut all the gorse and stuff and put down to stop the sinking. As our troops was progressing inland, they were obviously taking German prisoners, and they then occupied the billets here, which were formerly occupied by our troops. So we had exchange of troops from British to German. We had a lot of prisoner of war here because the German prisoners were in 3 separate lots: blacks, greys and whites. The blacks were real committed Nazis. The greys were a bit but the whites were okay, and they were put on the farms to work. And I did get to know 1 or 2 of them. My family had always done their bit in the war. My father was in India, First World War. I had an uncle killed in France in the First World War. When I got to 18, I gave up farming and I joined the RAF regiment because they say they were here practicing. I fell in love with what they did, which took me to Germany mainly. But no, to me there's no place like Cornwall. There's no place like southern Cornwall. And to me, it's beautiful.